Well, welcome to book 9 of the Odyssey. Let's begin. So this is the first of 3 books within the Odyssey in which Odysseus is the narrator, and it's Odysseus recounting his journeys leading up to Calypso and the Phaeacians and all that stuff. But before he gets into his journey story thing, he explains who he is and just from where he's from. So he's like, I'm Odysseus and I'm from Ithaca. And he describes Ithaca as a rough land that nurtures fine men, which is arguably representative of Odysseus. Is he a fine man? Maybe. Is he a bit rough around the edges? 100%. He also makes sure to slip in the fact that Calypso and Circe tried to keep him captive because they wanted to bang him to high heaven, which obviously is such a terrible ordeal. I mean, it kind of is if you want to get home, but it's not that bad, let's be real. And then he finally begins his story from his journey back from Troy. And we get the first episode in this book, which is the Ismarus/Isle of Cicones episode. So in this episode, he explains how they landed in Ismarus and just plundered a bunch of shit to get spoils of ore and stuff for prestige. And he says how his men wanted to stay a little bit longer and plunder more, but it completely ignored Odysseus' pleas to stop so that they could have time to escape. But his men don't listen to him, they keep plundering, and sure enough, the Cicones gather more reinforcements because they've given them time to do so. They completely wreck Odysseus' army, to the point where we are told that 6 men from each ship are killed. Now, we're not told how many ships he has, which is very useful, but we're supposed to assume that it's a lot of men that got killed from this. This is a very big loss for Odysseus and his army. So while they're grieving their loss, while they're sailing back, Zeus just really adds salt to the wound and sends a storm to them, which is very sad. And after the storm, they do manage to rest on land for 2 days and nights before sailing off again. And then we get episode 2 in book 9, which is the episode of the Lotus Eaters. So he sends 3 men to investigate when they land on this island, and they find the Flotus Eaters, and they are offered fruit, which they take, and it makes them not want to go home, which is not useful for Odysseus because he wants to go home. That's the whole point of this whole journey. So he has to force them back onto the ship and ties them to the benches so they don't escape before heading off again. And then we get to episode 3 / the main episode of the book, which is the episode of Polyphemus and the Cyclopes. Woo! Fun. So before we really get into the episode, Homer / Odysseus explains some main things that you need to know about the Cyclopes. Number 1, they ain't got no laws. Number 2, they don't farm, they just pick up whatever grows naturally on the land, so there's no agriculture. Number 3, there's no politics. Number 4, as a result of there being no politics, each man, Cyclops, rules over their own household. So they're like the leaders of their houses. And number 5, there's no ships, which is very important because that means that 1, they can't trade, so there's no income for them really, but it also means that they can't access other cultures and learn new things, so they're kind of in a bit of a stasis. And this is also a defining feature of being civilized, is being able to interact with other people, so they're not civilized according to Homeric standards. So after explaining this, Odysseus continues his story and tells the Phaeacians that they then landed on Goat Island, which is an island that's next to the land of the Cyclopes. And it's just an island full of goats. There's just goats everywhere. And him and his men are helped by the nymphs in catching these goats for food. Woo! Goat food, love it. Then the next day, he takes some men to investigate the Cyclopes' island and finds a den. And as they go to the den, he makes sure to take some really good wine given to him by a priest of Apollo, whose family he protected. And this is an important plot point. Remember it later, kids. And as they approach the den, they spot a Cyclops tending to his sheep before sneaking inside. Spoiler alert, the Cyclops is Polyphemus. Whoa! So they go into the den, and his men tell him that, hey, we should just take some cheese, take some sheep as quickly as we can, and then just leave, because we don't want to, face that Cyclops we just saw. But because Odysseus is a massive dumbass, as you will find out later in this epic as well, he says that, no, we should stay, because we're guests, and obviously the Cyclopes will be good hosts, because they're obviously so civilized, as we've seen. And so because of this, they wait, which, as you will see in a moment, not a good idea. So then Polyphemus comes back in, he herds his sheep into their pens, pairs the mother sheep with their little lambs, which is very nurturing, very cute. He closes the entrance with this massive boulder, and he milks the sheep, and he makes some cheese, before finally he notices Odysseus and the gang. Which, first reading seems a bit like, how's he only just noticed them? But then you gotta realise that they're probably pretty small compared to him, so it is understandable that he wouldn't have seen them as quickly. But when he does spot them, he is understandably quite pissed that they've stolen his stuff and just waltzed into his den with no invitation, so he's mad. But Odysseus is like, hey, we're just some Greeks who got lost on our way back from Troy, plus we're your guests, and Zeus would be really angry if you didn't treat us well and didn't give us gifts, so gotta be nice to us. But Polyphemus is like, do you really think I care about the gods? I'm Poseidon's son. I do what I want. Also, we Cyclopes don't care about the gods, so your loss. And then just to prove a point, he picks up a couple of Odysseus's men, bashes their heads on the floor like puppies. That's how it's described. And then eats them. And that's some big dick energy right there, kiddos. Prime example. And then, like a real legend, he falls asleep. Gotta love it. Please excuse the door slamming in the background. Our door doesn't close properly. Uni problems. Odysseus then thinks of just stabbing him to death with his sword. But then he realises he needs Polyphemus to move the boulder from the entrance, so he can't kill him yet. And then as the days go on, Polyphemus eats more and more of his men, repeating the same routine while Odysseus comes up with a plan. So first he sharpens a big wooden stick that he finds and hides it in some dung. Then he offers Polyphemus the wine that he brought with him, and when Polyphemus comes back from herding, he gives him the wine and gets him really drunk. Nearly as drunk as I got last night, which is why I have a hangover. More uni problems. Woo! So when Polyphemus asks his name while he's drinking with him, Odysseus is like, my name is Nobody. Again, important plot point. And it's also one of the most overly done jokes in classics. Y'all better spare me from the Nobody jokes in the comments. I swear to God, I've seen enough of them. I get it. It's funny. We all get it. So anyway, Polyphemus then offers to eat Odysseus last because it's so merciful and he really likes Odysseus because he gave him free wine. And honestly, I'd probably be friends with anyone who gives me free alcohol, so big mood. And then, like he usually does, Polyphemus goes back to sleep. And while he's asleep, Odysseus and his men heat up the stick in the fire and drives it into his one singular eye, thus blinding him. And because this is obviously quite a painful thing to have happen to you, Polyphemus shouts out to the other Cyclopes for help. But when they ask him what's wrong, he's like, nobody blinded me. And so they're all like, okay then. I guess nothing's wrong then if nobody did this to you. God, Polyphemus, you wild card. Fucking blinding yourself. So silly, Polyphemus. And then they just go off. So it's just there like, my eye. And while this is happening, Odysseus and his men tied themselves underneath the sheep. And they're herded out by Polyphemus. But in a very suspenseful moment, Polyphemus stops Odysseus' ram, suspicious that it's going so slow, because usually it leads the herd. But then he ends up just like being sad about his eye and just lets it go. So that was a very close call. So then Odysseus and his men board the ship, but as they sail off, because again, Odysseus is really, really dumb, he's like, haha, Polyphemus, you're so weak. This is Zeus's punishment for you for not treating us right. And obviously this makes Polyphemus pretty mad, so Polyphemus starts throwing rocks at them, which isn't great, and understandably, his men are like, Odysseus, what the fuck are you saying? Shut the fuck up, otherwise it's gonna actually kill us. But Odysseus, because he just loves ignoring his men and not being a smart boy, is like, I want you to remember that it was Odysseus who blinded you. It was me who defeated you. Fuck you. And Polyphemus, because now he knows his name, is like, right, I got a prophecy about you, that you would do this, so now I'm going to take advantage of the fact that you've given me your name, and I'm going to curse you, because I'm Poseidon's son, and I can do that. And so, he curses him, and this is the curse. So the curse is, Odysseus won't reach Ithaca, or he will come late, alone, in a foreign ship, and find trouble in his home, which is not ideal, as you can probably imagine. And plus, we already know that the last two things have come true, because, one, we've seen that there is trouble in his home, oh my god, with the suitors and stuff, and he is going to come home in a foreign ship, because he's at the Phaeacians, and he's literally just asked them to take him home. So what we got to find out now is how he's come late and how he's come alone, which will be explained in later books. So after his curse, and his men are like, fuck's sake, Odysseus, you fucked it. They land on a bit of land, and they sacrifice to Zeus. But apparently, I don't know how Odysseus knows this, although from what happens later, you can probably guess. He says that Zeus just ignores them and doesn't pay attention to their sacrifice. And then they sail off, and the book ends. So, sorry again for the loud noises that have probably happened in the background during this recording. Our house is not great in terms of having soundproofed walls, and I'm right next to the front door, which you got to slam when you close it, so that's fun. But I will see you all in the future for the Aeneid summaries and the Odyssey summaries. And yeah, bye!